Thanks for listening to the Tech Tools for Teachers podcast, where each week we talk about a free piece or two of technology that you can use in your classroom. I'm your host, Shanna Martin. I'm a middle school teacher, technology and instructional coach from my district.
And I'm her producer and husband, Fuzz Martin, and I'm the one that's running this here little experiment each and every week.
Oh, that was cute.
It wasn't. How are you today?
I'm good.
Good.
We're in the midst of January.
Cold.
2023. It is cold and Wisconsin-y. And we're bringing a little Wisconsin to all of you today on this year's podcast. So I am sure that every state has their own version of PBS because it's public broadcasting.
That's right. And
in Wisconsin, we have a fabulous collection of teacher resources on our PBS.
We do
through our PBS stations and whatnot.
Yes.
So I decided that I would share a really cool little nugget of information from the PBS Wisconsin education site. That what's cool is a lot of Wisconsin teachers know about it, but if you are not from Wisconsin, my dear listeners that are all over the world, you can still use this website and all of these cool resources, even if you don't live here.
Yeah, look at that little
And then
hack.
you can pretend like you do, or you can pretend like you don't, because then you don't have to sit through our fabulous winters here in January. So today's site is pbswisconsineducation.org.
Yes.
Which is the general one, /meet the lab.
Meet the lab.
/ And if you just get to PBS Wisconsin Education and then click on Classroom Media, you'll find it.
Cool.
What also is cool, I've talked about PBS Wisconsin a little bit before in previous episodes, that they have this Classroom Media section that talks about all kinds of cool things. It's not just one topic. We are going to focus on one topic today, but we've talked about, like, they have a whole thing on Wisconsin's First Nations. They have different things on learning media and different things about Wisconsin. It's just a lot of cool resources for teachers. But today we're going to focus on Meet the Lab. So Meet the Lab is a super cool section of the PBS Wisconsin education sites that is for or focused on science-related activities and specifically to middle school, but can definitely be adapted for younger or older students. And it's a collection of educational resources for science classrooms. They talk about real-world issues. They talk about how you can connect these things to your real life, how to apply these scientific practices, and then they give you some hands-on things. And what's also cool is they talk about science-related careers, which I feel like there was a big push for career things a few years ago, and then it was kind of like COVID happened and everyone's just swimming and keeping your head above water. And now we're back on field trips and things like that to expose our kids to different careers that are out there. So this is a really cool way to bring science careers into your classroom as well. So they have different labs that you can pick from. So there's bio builders, there's visual communicators, there's virus investigators, and a few others, cancer detectives, things like that. And what's cool is you can pick and choose what you're interested in. So if we click on virus investigators, it pulls up a whole lesson, how can we control viruses that make us sick? And then they talk about Meet the Scientist, which is really cool. You click on a scientist and you click their picture, their little view their superpower, and it's almost like a digital baseball card about that scientist.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So what their superpower is, or what they do, weirdest things that I love, what I like to study. It's just kind of cool. And it gives you a little background. These are real people. They're not just another random thing to click on a website. So it gives you a little bit of their background, which is really neat. And you can create your own card. So student scientists, they have the little template in Google Slides that you can make your own cool scientist card, which I appreciate. You can see real scientists, and then kids are scientists when they're in the classroom. So you're a scientist too in your classroom, and you can be just like the scientist, which I don't know. I think that's pretty neat.
I like that on those cards. Yeah. And it has that middle school story that tells them how they became, how they thought of science back when they were in middle school. Also, the weirdest thing that I love, some of them are weird. And then one is mystery novels. And I'm like, that's not really weird, guy.
Someone had Snooker on there, which I think is amazing.
Yes.
But yeah, so
jalapeno and peanut butter sandwiches.
But it's like how kids can then relate to these like real people. Like they're scientists, they're changing the world, and also like they're real people.
Yep.
So then there's a video that like walks you through some information, some background, and it's transcribed into both English and Spanish, which is always important for me. And then questions to consider. So this one based on viruses, like what do you think or feel about viruses that you've learned about? Like what are new ways did it cause you to behave? Like things like that. So it's questions to make them think, which is awesome. And then you could ask questions. So being a scientist, asking new questions, because that's always my thing in questions and questioning skills. Like you've got to ask questions all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And you can pick your different scientists and it gives you videos about different questions that you can pose to them. And then do the science. So after all of that background information and like connecting to the scientists, then you click to do the actual activity. And then there's a video that walks you through the lab. And it's like, how do microscopes help viruses? And it's going to be a microscope lab. It tells you how long it is. It walks you through like the data sheets. It's going to walk you through different things. Like if you aren't using a mouse, like a touchscreen, like this symbol, because then it adjusts for you. And then it walks you through the different parts of the lab. So you can learn how to be a scientist and learn about cells and viruses. And there's 14 different steps to the lab that you complete as you walk through. And students can then complete their task where you can do it as a class together. So there's just a lot of cool pieces of information, even if you don't go all the way through the labs, but even the background on the scientists or just the videos to go with it, or you can use this as a supplement to your science classrooms. There's a lot of just cool things to learn that students could either do this individually or you could lead it as a class, like a full learning lesson for your class. They have something on nervous system engineers, stem cells, and they go through, again, different scientists, why research matters. They talk about all those different steps and the questioning skills and then start the activity and walks you through. So Meet the Lab is a really cool way that PBS Wisconsin Education has set up some really neat science lessons that are obviously free, easy to navigate through, and a lot of ways to introduce kids to different jobs and scientists that they wouldn't normally see necessarily on a regular basis. And it's all neatly organized and like bundled up for you. So it's easy to walk yourself through.
Right. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. And then too, across the top, like I said before, so that's Meet the Lab, and it's all science-based, standard aligned, all that kind of stuff. They have their classroom media. So if you click on that across the top of the page, it'll take you to other PBS learning media, the Ways, which I use all the time with my Native American lessons, the First Nations, Wisconsin biographies, all of that information is there. And they also have professional developments for teachers and educators across the state. However, you can also access this from anywhere.
Yes.
They have a whole kindness curriculum and how they can help kids understand each other better and implementing the curriculum in your classroom. And those are for different age levels too. So that's like pre-K, K. So there's different things labeled for different grade levels depending on what your needs are. So if you have not explored pbswisconsineducation.org, you should definitely do so because there's tons of really well done resources for teachers. But specifically, if you're a science teacher and you're looking for something cool to build in, especially in these longer months of the year, Meet the Lab is a really cool resource to share with students and have them do some science research and learn about other scientific jobs.
Yeah, I dig it.
So yeah, Meet the Lab.
Meet the Lab.
PBS Wisconsin Education. Check it out.
Indeed.
There you go. Well, thanks for tuning in. This has been the Tech Tools for Teachers podcast. If you ever have any questions, you can find me on Twitter @SmartNWI. And if you want to get more information on the links to the technology discussed in this episode, you can visit smartnwi.com. If you'd like to support the show, please consider buying me a coffee or two. Visit buymeacoffee.com/smartnwi or visit smartnwi.com and click on that cute little purple coffee cup. Your donations help keep this show going. New episodes each week. Thanks for listening. Go educate and innovate.
The ideas and opinions expressed in this podcast and the Smart and WI website are those of the author, Shanna Martin, and not of her employer. Prior to using any of the technologies discussed on this podcast, please consult with your employer regulations. This podcast offers no guarantee that these tools will work for you as described, but we hope they do. And we'll talk to you next time right here on the Tech Tools for Teachers podcast.